Hi everyone, this is Sue Reynolds, President of the American Student Achievement Institute, and the focus of this video is on fundraising for redesigning school counseling. So several of you who are watching this video are doing so because you did not receive the Lilly Counseling Initiative Implementation Phase Grant. And so we just wanted to kind of touch base with you for a moment. So what does it mean if you didn't get that grant? Well, it just does not reflect on the quality of your program at all. We really wanted to emphasize that. What it does mean is just that your application to Lilly was not a good match for their initiative on that day with that funding source. So we want you to remember that getting funding involves some degree of luck. Are you in the right place at the right time? And also to think that the door is not permanently closed. May not be permanently closed with Lilly, and it definitely is not permanently closed with other funders. So right now, if you submitted a grant to Lilly that was not approved, you have a choice to make. Is this going to be a dead end and you say, okay, we're just not going to go forward right now with RSC? Or is this just a temporary roadblock? And our thinking is that if you truly believe that your school's participation in redesigning school counseling is good for your students, then it's just a no-brainer. You've got to find another means of funding for it. And really, anytime you apply for a grant, if your idea is really a good idea, there can't be any dead ends. It always has to be just a temporary roadblock, and you keep trying and trying and trying until you finally find that funder. If it's good for kids, there usually is a funder out there. It's just a matter of time before you find the funder. So a couple things about RSC to remember is that it is a good initiative. We have independent research now that shows that the schools that participate in RSC and earn Gold Star and RAMP have significantly higher proficiency rates on state math and language arts tests. So we know that RSC impacts student achievement. We also know that people that have studied RSC and Indiana Gold Star School Counseling, which results from RSC, that the people that have studied Indiana school counseling have identified RSC and Gold Star as one of the brightest spots on the Indiana school counseling landscape. And they say that RSC provides a consistent and comprehensive process for schools to examine, organize, and redesign their school counseling efforts based on student goals and outcomes. So again, RSC can make a difference in kids' lives. And we also know that the professional development model that is used in RSC works, the program design model in RSC works, because Indiana far exceeds other states in the number of schools that have earned the ASCA RAMP award. So again, RSC we think is a good idea for your kids, and we think it's worthwhile finding a funding source for it. So if you did not receive that Lilly grant, one of the things we'd like to suggest is that you contact Lilly and just tell them that your school's applied for the Lilly Counseling Initiative funding, but you didn't get it, and that you'd like to learn from this situation, and you're wondering if Lilly could give you some pointers about things that you might do differently the next time you apply for a grant. And then whatever they say, listen, listen, listen. Especially if this is one of your first times in writing a grant, just remember that everybody gets denied in their first few grant applications. So the key is to learn from each grant application, especially the ones that were denied, and to just, develop that skill of grant writing. I would also ask Lilly, or anytime you're turned down for a grant, I'd ask the funder, are there other grant makers that you should be considering? Are there other funders that they would suggest that might have a similar interest to your interests? Okay. Then I'd also suggest, if you did not receive the Lilly funding, that you reassess your financial needs. The question is, what's the least amount of funds that you need to implement a data-driven school counseling program? And to be quite honest, most of our schools that we work with have no other funds, no funding other than what they need to participate in RSC. So really, your participation, because so much of what we give you, we're giving you at no cost, the whole online system, the student survey, the database of lesson plans, the online counselor time use log, all of that we give you at no cost. The only thing that we're charging for is our out-of-pocket costs to provide the on-call support. And the reviews. So $550 is all you need. Some schools like to do meeting refreshments for their 6 council meetings, so you might want to ask a funder for slightly more than $550 to cover some refreshment costs. But it's really a very low cost initiative. Now, I do want to point out that in our process, there's a step where we're going to look at, do you need additional funds to implement the activities that you plan during the process? And if so, then there's a step in our process where we're going to look at where are those funds going to come from. And it may mean, if you're needing funding for a software program that you're going to use with your students, then in the process we'll talk about, okay, how are we going to get the funding for those materials. So, okay, but for right now, I would really reassess your financial needs and look at, do you need megabucks, or are you just looking for $550 or maybe $650 to cover your participation in RSC and some meeting refreshments. Okay, so now you're ready to look for other funds. Your first step is to brainstorm other funding sources. So let's talk about that a little bit. One funding source that we know you'll have in the future is potentially Lilly Endowment, as they bring about round 2. So you might look at your district applying for round 2 Lilly funding, and will they consider putting RSC into that phase? I do want to emphasize that RSC actually fit better, we think, in the planning phase. So because RSC is a planning process, if you're going to include RSC in the implementation grant, I would really emphasize that RSC is just the first step, and then that planning phase will identify the things that you're going to implement, and then part of the funding, or maybe even the majority of the funding that you're asking Lilly for, would be to implement the activities that result from the RSC planning process. So, okay. Then there's also other foundations that you can look at. The foundationcenter.org is a place that is a clearinghouse of information about grant makers, so you can see, who makes educational grants, who makes grants related to students' social personal needs. There's all kinds of information you can find there. GuideStar.org is another place to learn about foundations and charities. And one tip we like to give here is to not be overwhelmed by the size of some of the foundation's grants. When you start to research the foundations, you'll see, $1 million grants, and you don't need $1 million. You maybe need $600-700 to do RSC, but that shouldn't stop you from talking to some of those foundations that make larger grant applications or awards. They also make smaller awards to organizations. There's nothing wrong with calling a foundation and just saying, here's what I'm thinking. Is this a good fit for your foundation? And if so, how do I follow through? So just a little 5-minute phone call. Okay, so foundations are another source. State agencies also have funding. We know that the Indiana Department of Ed allocates Title IV funds. Those are funds that are used to help schools provide a well-rounded educational opportunity, to meet students' social-emotional needs, and to give an effective use of technology in technology integration. So Title IV funds, you could find out in your district who's responsible for your district's Title IV funds, and just let that person know that you would like a portion of those funds to support your needs. Also, the Commission for Higher Ed is interested in school counseling, especially with their Learn More Indiana initiative. And the Indiana Department of Workforce Development is very interested in developing a workforce, so the career guidance that school counselors do is of interest to them. When I was a school counselor, I would just sometimes call these agencies, and I would just say, I'm ready to launch this initiative. I need some funding. I was wondering if there's anything that you're aware of that I might be looking at. And sometimes agencies would say, we're about to have to return some funds to the federal government. And yeah, if you can get me an application in like the next 2 minutes, I can get you some funds. So you just never know, and you're probably more likely to get a no than a yes, but you never know when you call these organizations if they have funds, and you just hit it at the right time. So state agencies. This is where we think your best bet is. This is where I think the lowest hanging fruit is in terms of finding a small grant to support your involvement in RSC. Your local organizations certainly care about your local students, and your community foundation, your chamber of commerce, businesses in your area, service clubs like your Kiwanis and your Lions, and your PTA. We also have schools where the counselors will put on 4 or 5 bake sales to raise money for RSC. So service clubs, we did a little research project and looked at all of the mission statements for the larger service clubs in Indiana, and 80% of them mention youth in their mission statement. And service clubs are often looking for service projects. That would be a great place to start, to call your Kiwanis Club or the Lions Club and tell them that you're looking to do an initiative, and would they be interested in that as a service project. The other thing you can do is you can join forces between service clubs. You could ask 3 or 4 or 5 different service clubs to each donate a small amount to your initiative. One thing about community foundations is that they tend to have a real sense of where funding is available in your community. They like projects like this one that are research-based and data-driven. Community foundations tend to not have a large staff. And so what you would be bringing to the table is a person or persons who could implement an initiative locally. And what they would be bringing to the table is knowledge of funding, or possibly even funding. With the chamber and businesses, I think they're very interested in the quality of the workforce. They're very concerned with employees' substance abuse and social personal issues. And I think helping them understand that this initiative would impact their future workforce might be of a lot of interest to them. And then they're also interested in high academic achievement or high academic skills. The STEM skills, of course, are really important to your local business and industry. And this would be, a way to help them understand that this initiative would result in an increased percentage of graduates attending post-secondary ed and understanding the STEM fields. So, and even if you're in elementary school, these businesses are going to have to be hiring someone 10 years from now, 12 years from now. So they're interested in your kindergartners, because they know that 10 years from now, they're still going to be in business and they're going to be looking for employees. So, okay, so local organizations, we really think that's, if I were in your situation looking for a small amount of money to support this initiative, I'd be going to some of these local organizations, as well as to your own, school district. So nonprofits, one thing that I think would be possible is funding from the Indiana Youth Institute. They have a professional development grant that many people that I know have taken advantage of. It's really nice. They award small grants, $750, and they award those grants every month. So the app deadline is the 10th of each month. And of course, RSC is professional development. So we're teaching schools how to design a data-driven school counseling program. So I would, that's another possibility. Applied to IYI for one of their professional development grants. And then, if all else fails, we are going to be offering a grant to help schools participate in RSC. So you could apply for our grant as well. So our grants are going to come in the amount of $550. They are to be eligible, a school has to have included RSC in their Lilly implementation grant, but we're not funded. So, and what the schools will do in that grant, in the application, is they will document for us all the effort that they made locally to obtain local funding. So you'll do, part of the application is a log of, did you talk to your school district, to your local service clubs, to your foundation, to your Chamber of Commerce. And after you document all of that and sign an assurance that you will complete the RSC process in good standing, then that would make you eligible for one of our grants. And if we get more applications than we have funding available, we'll review those applications based on how significant of an effort the local school made to obtain local funding. So so we're planning on awarding several of those grants. So please, after you've exhausted all other possibilities, then apply for our grant. And that grant is, application is due August 25th. We will let you know the next day if you've got the award, because shortly, like just a few days after that, we actually start the RSC process. So so we hope to see lots of local grants, but if not, there's the possibility of our grant as well. Okay, so next thing we want to talk about then is when you are applying for those local grants, which we hope you get, we need to think about preparing your pitch. So first of all, I want you to really think about that grants start with relationships. And I like this quote: from beginning to end, grant seeking is all about good communication, and it really comes down to relationships and getting to know people. So as you're putting together your pitch, we want to think about that pitch being well organized, clear, concise. We want your potential funder to be able to close their eyes and have a perfect picture of what it is that they're funding. And we want them to believe that you are going to be wildly successful. We want them to believe not only in the project, but also in your capacity for pulling it off. So when we're developing pitches, this is what we do. And again, we've been, operating on grant funding for 20 years, so with a decent sized staff. So we've gotten pretty good at this. So the first thing that I always do as our organization's fundraiser is I always study the funder. I look at this funder's mission statement. I look at other grants that they've awarded. And I also pay attention to what words they're using, their terminology, so that when I talk to them, I'm speaking their language. When I'm studying a funder, if their mission doesn't really align with our mission and the project that I'm trying to fund, I will not pitch to that funder, because it's just a waste of their time and be a waste of my time too if their mission and what I'm trying to do are two different things. But when there's a good match between the funder's mission and what you're trying to do, then it's a win-win. It's a win for the funder, and it's a win for me. It's a win for our organization. I never, ever look at fundraising as an attempt to get a handout, or I never think about it as asking for money. I always think about it as an opportunity for me to help the fundraiser or to help the funder do what they want to do. So when you're reading the mission statements of your local service clubs, look for the ones that mention kids, look for the ones that have a history of doing the type of, work with getting kids to college or whatever it is that you're interested in doing. So we're looking for the right fit in your funder. That's really important. Then in my talking points, I try to do a 30-minute presentation with 30 minutes of Q&A. And that's getting all of RSC into 30 minutes in a presentation. That's challenging because RSC is so comprehensive. So I'm looking for a 30-minute presentation, 30-minute Q&A. And in that presentation, I really try to think about I'm just talking to a friend. We're two people on a common mission. They have their mission, that's in their mission statement. I have my mission. Our missions overlap. So I'm just thinking, this is a no-brainer. We should be working together. So the first thing I'll talk about is the student issue. And I always try to bring in student baseline data. In some of the Lilly grants that we were able to read because the district shared them with us, the issue was not that the district presented to Lilly was not a student issue, it was a counselor issue. The grant was about counselors being overworked and counselors having too many students. And if they had worded that grant differently, which is what we advised, so that it was a student issue, students needed to do campus visits. Students needed to understand their learning style. Students needed to understand assertiveness versus aggression. Students had mental health issues that needed to be addressed before they could be successful learners as they need to be. So we always presented in student issues, and that just makes sense because that's why we're there in the schools. And as much as possible, we use student baseline data. One of the nice things about RSC is that we collect lots of data, so the next time you go to apply for a grant, you'll have lots of data to back up your student issue. Then we'll outline how do we plan to address the issue. So, right now you've got all these student issues. One of the things that's getting in the way is that you don't have a school counseling program that reaches all students. You don't have a program right now that uses data to identify what the students' issues are. You maybe don't have a program right now that engages others in delivering your services. It's just counselor-based right now. So the way that you're going to address those student issues is to design a school counseling program that is data-driven based on student needs, brings other people to the table to provide services, and is really designed to reach every single student. So that's, what you'll plan. I'll show you in a minute some deliverables that you can share with the potential funder. And then you're saying, if we get the results, not if, when we get the results that we want. And actually, I see this word if on my slide, change that to when. When you are successful, what you'll observe is a lot of student data. You'll observe a program that has activities that are targeted to what students need. You'll see activities that reach every single student and not just those who initiate coming in to see their counselor. So, you're I like to just kind of literally close my eyes and I think about, okay, if everything happens the way I want it to, what would I be looking at if I walked in my school and I looked around and this initiative was wildly successful? What would I be seeing? So, and then I'll, figure out how am I going to describe that to the funder. And then where will your student data be? So right now, if one of your data points is only, 2% of the kids who are free and reduced are submitting a FAFSA, when this is all over with, you're telling the funder, we want that to be at 80%. And that's where we'll get to. So, and then on number 4, you also have to sell yourself, because you can have a great idea, but if you're a disorganized person that doesn't follow through, it's not going to matter that your idea is great because it won't happen. So you want to also sell to your funder your personal attributes. One of the, and I would just say, one of the reasons that I think that this is going to be successful is because I have a history of being able to implement data-driven programs, or I have the history of creating change in my, in the Boy Scout troop that I lead or the church group that I work with, and those same attributes, being organized, being a go-getter, being able to work well with people, those are the things that are going to make me successful with this initiative. So it's just like if you ever watch Shark Tank, sometimes the sharks will say, we don't care what your initiative is, we're so sold on you as a person, we know that you'll be successful at whatever you do. That's what we're trying to bring across in this initial 30 minutes. And then finally, we're introducing, what do you need from a partner? I'm looking for a partner who can provide these materials for me, or who can sponsor me to do this professional development, or I'm looking for funding so that I can purchase this or purchase that. I'm looking for consultation. What is it that you want from that funder? And I like to refer to the funder as a partner because I view the funder as a partner. We're joining forces to create a common, to move towards a common goal or common vision. I'm bringing in the legwork and the rolling up my sleeves and doing all the grunt work for it, and they're providing, funding or consultation or whatever I'm seeking from them. So, okay, and then finally you want to develop a one-page handout that you can leave with the funder that has your contact information and a little bit about the program. Keep in mind that person is probably going to have to go talk to other people, and so that info sheet is really just kind of an outline of what you want them to say to other people. So if you're talking to one person from the Kiwanis Club, they're probably going to go back and talk to all their members or talk to their leadership team or whatever. And so having that one page is really important for that person to take with them when they go to present on your behalf to other people. Okay, so we have an RSC info sheet that we can give you, and then I would customize it to meet your needs, and especially adding your past history as a change maker, ideally with student data, to show what kinds of things you've been able to do in the past, to let people know that you can pull this off. And then if there's any testimony, if your principal or your superintendent could give you a statement about why they think RSC is so great. Or sometimes when I go to somebody in the community, I'll say, like to the Chamber of Commerce, I understand you don't have any funding, but could you be a supporter and could you give me a statement that I could use when I am fundraising? So, so you might get testimony from folks that way. Okay, so that's developing your pitch. Then the next step is to request a meeting and getting your foot in the door. Sometimes that's really difficult. I'd like to, if I can, to get an introduction. And so I'll look for, if I'm going to the Kiwanis Club, I might say to our faculty, does anybody know anybody on the Kiwanis Club that you could introduce me to? An email introduction is fine. Or if John says, yeah, my uncle's in the Kiwanis Club, you could call his uncle and say, John suggested I contact you. If you can get your foot in the door with that kind of an introduction, that's really helpful. Sometimes I usually will start with a very short email, and in the email I'll also refer to the introduction. John suggested that I contact you. I try to show that I understand the funder's mission, so they understand, that this is a partnership and not me just wanting money. This is going to be good for them too. I understand their mission. And then in the email, I will say that I'm going to, sometimes I'll just say I'm going to follow up, or I'll ask for a meeting and just to get my activities on their radar. And then during the meeting, I'll start to explore, is a partnership possible? And then, of course, after you meet with them, send a thank you note, and anything else that the funder requested, make sure they get it right away. And then, of course, if you're not funded, again, call the funder to find out why and look for another funder. Because remember, if this is good for kids, there are no dead ends. You have to keep going because we care about kids. So, okay. Okay, some success boosters. I would think about, especially if you have a lot of service clubs, especially in rural communities, sometimes there's not, like I was just talking to someone about a school that had a gas station in their school's catchment area. That was it. They no grocery store, no Dairy Queen, just nothing, gas station. But they did have a lot of service clubs. So you might consider, a smaller funding from multiple sources. You could go to the Kiwanis and say, if I can get other funding, would you match it? And then you can go to Lions and say, the Kiwanis said that they would match me if I could get funding from other sources. So think about how to kind of leverage the funding that way. You want to make sure that you're sustainable. Funders feel like they're throwing their money away, and they are throwing their money away if the initiative is not going to be sustainable after their money is gone. So what you can tell them is, your money with RSC, your money is going to be used to create an organizational structure. We're going to bring in volunteers to complement the work that the counselors are already doing. We're going to be taught how to develop a program, a data-driven school counseling program, and after the money's gone, we'll have that knowledge and those skills that we can use forever in our careers. So also remember positive wording. Don't say if we're successful, like I did on the other slide. Say when we're successful, and showing support from other organizations. So, once you do get the Kiwanis or their chamber or whoever to make a small donation, if not the whole thing, but if it's a small donation, then, go to other organizations and say, okay, Kiwanis has come in for 100, can you match that? Can you beat that? Okay. And then we mentioned concept supporters. If they can't support you in funding, I would ask, do they support you in concept? And may I list you as a concept funder? That will help you as you go to other funders. So, okay. So then writing the funding proposal. If you're writing a grant application, the biggest advice I have is just follow the instructions in the application. Make it clear, make it concise, be very purposeful in your writing and clear. Remember good communications, that's really important. But with your local funders, you're probably, not going to get a grant application from your Chamber of Commerce, or you might from the Chamber of Commerce, but you won't from, your Kiwanis Club or your the Lions Club. So what I normally will do then is you would initiate coming up with a memorandum of understanding. And it would include these three parts. First of all, your deliverable. And here's in RSC, this is what your deliverable will be. You'll be delivering to the funder, to the Kiwanis Club, a data-driven school counseling program designed to help all students make sound choices in targeted areas that impact high achievement, post-secondary attendance, career readiness, and social-emotional health. So that's your deliverable, to provide a program in your school that will do those things. Then how are you going to get there? Well, these are your activities. In RSC, you're going to convene and train a steering team. So, and the training, of course, would be through us. We would do that on your behalf. You're going to collect student data. You're going to convene a community-based school counseling council. And again, these are things that we'll teach you how to do. You're going to facilitate, there's a typo there, sorry, facilitate 5 discussions with your council that will lead to these 5 products. So at the end of this, you will have a vision for student success. You'll have a school counseling program goals. You'll have a resource expansion plan. That's where we're going to get more time and more funding to support your activities. And you'll have priority goals. Then you'll have root causes. Root causes it's a study that you'll do to determine why students aren't meeting your priority goals already. And then once we know the whys, then we know what activities to do. So then that 5th product will be a set of activities that you'll implement to address the root causes. And once those root causes go away, then you'll start to realize the priority goals. You'll reach the priority goals. So, okay. And then the 3rd part of the memorandum of understanding is the contribution of the funder. So, that's a dollar amount, or it might be weekly consultation, or what the other party is contributing. You want to have both parties sign this. If you're working with someone from the Kiwanis Club who moves to another state, you want to have some kind of evidence that this commitment was made to support you. So I would just write this up. It can be handwritten, but just whatever. And I think also it's an assurance that makes the funder feel good too, because it gives them some trust that their money isn't just going to go sit in some account in your school, but these are the deliverables that they can hold you accountable for. And again, when I was in the schools working with my service clubs, I would also say, I would like to come back at the end of all this and give your members a report on how it all went, and to let them know what happened because of their contribution. And you'll be so wildly successful that they'll just want to give you money again. So so that's the memorandum of understanding that you can do with a local service club or your chamber of commerce, or those local organizations. The other thing to think about is if you are approaching your principal or your superintendent for funding, this same kind of thing is important to do. We want your principal to know if he figures out a way to give you $550, this is exactly what he can expect in return for that. That you're going to have this data-driven program, that you're going to have these activities, that you're going to do these activities and have these products. And I always like to say to the principal, you can hold me accountable for this. I want to be accountable for these activities. So there's the memorandum of understanding. So that's it. We really, really hope that, and actually I'm very confident that you'll be able to find local funding. There are so many people right now that are interested in college access, career readiness, and social emotional health, that I think people are looking for ways to impact that among the young people in your community. And I think that they will jump on the opportunity to fund this initiative. But remember, if not, I'm going to go back a few slides. Remember, if not, if you've exhausted all possibilities and really worked hard to raise that funding locally in the next, couple of weeks, then there's this possibility too. The grant application for this will be on the front page of our website. We made it a very easy to fill out application. It's just a log of who did you contact and why were you turned down. And then there's just a one-page summary of what you did to try to get this funding locally. So that grant application to us, as long as you're logging the organizations as you go, it will take you, 20 minutes to fill out and submit to us. So also the other thing we asked for is that if there's any materials that you've developed, we're just kind of curious to see, and then what materials you're using as you go to pitch to potential funders. So we've asked you to send those to us too as part of your application. So, but really the only extra thing that you're having to do to qualify for our funding is to write a one-page summary of your efforts and how they went. So, okay, I think that's it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. My phone number is 812-349-4142, or you can email asai at asaiinstitute.org. So, okay, thanks everyone, and I wish you lots of luck. We'd like to be working with every single one of the schools who did not receive the Lilly funding, and we hope that you'll be able to find that funding locally. It just kills me that you all are out there and you want to do RSC and you want to earn Gold Star, and now this funding is getting in your way. I would do this for free, but we have a nonprofit where we have to pay our bills as well. So Yeah, so we have to pass on some of those costs, but we want to help you raise that funding locally. So give us a call if there's any way we can help. Thanks, everyone.